All right. It is that time as always. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. This is your place to be. As always, your island of misfit toys. This is the Metal Summit. As always, we've got Jason Proswag. We've got the Psycho Steve. We've got Angel Alamo. We've got Bobby Dreyer. And I'm Jay. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in with us. The first half of the week is dead. It's over. We're over it. We're not going to worry about it now. This is where the weekend really begins. And we'll jump right into it. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us. And let's bring in our guest at this time. We've got from Spread Eagle, UFO, Helmet, Sebastian Bach, probably 16 other bands because he's just that good, that talented, and we're so pleased to have him. Mr. Rob DeLuca, how are you, brother?
Thank you, Metal Summit, for having me. I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. Good to see you guys.
Absolutely, man, 100%. Well, hey, let's jump right into it. With being it now that it's a few solid months into 2021, the gears have definitely been turning on everything. Talk a little bit about what you've got going on right now.
Well, I'm still kind of waiting to see. I mean, this week things really changed and people started announcing tours and stuff, and so I'm still kind of on hold. I know. Obviously a lot of stuff was canceled. Bach canceled North America in this last, in the summer. In the spring, UFO canceled South America, a couple European tours. Spread Eagle canceled North America. So it looks like waiting to see what Bach books. UFO has the fall in Europe. So, but I still don't have any exact details, unfortunately. But it's good to see that, especially today, a bunch of things were announced, and in the last few days, a few other things. So it's good to see things are coming back around.
Absolutely, man, 100%. I've always kind of found this to be kind of an interesting question. When things started shutting down last year, what were you doing at the time? Do you remember?
I certainly do. I was on the boat, the cruise, Rock Legends cruise, and we got off on March 2nd. UFO and Bach actually played that same cruise.
Oh,
yeah, we got off on March 2nd, and we were lucky to get off that boat because within days, I don't know if you guys remember, but remember at the beginning there was all those cruise ships they weren't letting them dock because COVID. It was just this big crazy question mark of this crazy flu, and some people may have had it on these cruise ships, so they were keeping them out in the water. And, some cruise ships have older people and they didn't have meds and people were dying, because of that and because of COVID. And so we were lucky we got off the boat on March 2nd. And by maybe the 10th, the whole world had changed. So.
That's wild, man. That's totally wacky. Yeah, I have a day job in a restaurant as a bartender, and we were talking off the air about how Ray West, from Spread Eagle, does that as well. But it was actually crazy, some of those early stories from talking to people once the restaurant reopened and we were back to taking guests and stuff. Because I actually had some crazy conversations with guests who were overseas and were able to get from this country into this country, and one guy said that he had a flight at 1 p.m. that time. He was able to get on a flight 3 hours earlier, and it was the best decision that he made because during that 3 hour span they shut down everything, and he wouldn't have been able to get home for months.
Yeah. I mean, we were so lucky. I didn't know. We were just starting to hear about it in Italy. Remember when, this is some crazy thing in Italy, came from China and it's in Italy. But we were lucky to get off that boat. And then within a few days, everything was shut down. So.
Crazy, man. Absolutely. Well, we're definitely glad
that you're out of it now.
Yeah, absolutely. You sure are, 100%. And let's bring in Psycho Steve, man. How about yourself, brother? Why don't you cue in for this segment?
Yeah, so you brought up a couple of bands, but you forgot one band that's really important to Rob's history of bands that he was in, a band called Bang.
Oh, yeah.
Oh!
That's one of my first bands, yeah.
Exactly. So let's talk about your history of being a member of Sebastian Bach's band, because prior to you, before Brent and everybody that's in the current lineup, you know, he's had several lineup changes. But were you friends with Baz before you joined the band, or did you have to audition, or how did the gig come about?
I didn't have to audition. I was friends with him. We didn't hang out, you know, but we were friendly.
Right.
He liked Spread Eagle back in the day,
Right.
and he said some really nice things about Spread Eagle in the press, which helped us, which we really appreciated and still do. Because, you know, back then it was Axl, it was Sebastian, it was Bret Michaels, you know, they were big names. So when they talked about bands, people listened, you know. So he liked us, and he actually got up on stage and sung with us once in 1990. He sung Broken City with us in Jersey. So I think we got back in touch in the early 2000s or something. And Steve DiGiorgio was leaving his band, and I started in rehearsals. I started some rehearsals that Steve couldn't make, and then just continued into doing gigs. And back then there was some Jersey guys in the band, Metal Mike and Bobby Jarzomback and Johnny Chromatic. They're not metal guys, but Metal Mike is.
Right.
So, you know, and I've been there, and that was 2005.
Wow.
Long time ago.
Sweet. Yeah, because he had, what's his name? Bam Bam in his band.
Yeah. And I was friends with Bam Bam. Well, I didn't play with him in Sebastian's band. I was friends with Bam Bam in the early 90s on the New York scene. He was playing in, I think, The Brood was the name of his band. I believe.
And then he had Richard Scarlett and Paul Crook and, you know, a lot of Jersey boys. So.
Yeah. Oh, and went through Sebastian's band, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so then I came in after all those guys you're talking about. And it's been a blast. You know, Baz is one of the best frontmen out there. He's just incredible at that. And we kick ass. The band kicks ass. You know?
Definitely. I could say I can be testament to that, because you were nice to hook me up with a ticket when you guys played Sony Theater right before this whole happened. When Rob Fuso came out and played Making a Mess with you guys.
Yep. Rob's a nice guy. He's a really good dude. Yeah.
Sweet.
So yeah, that's how that went down, and it seemed to turn out pretty well.
Sweet. And same thing with UFO, to piggyback on that.
UFO was different. I didn't audition for them either. Ron Thal, Vinny was telling his friends they were looking for a bass player. Pete Way couldn't get into the country, I believe, for the second time.
Yeah.
And so Vinny was reaching out, and Ron said, I know the guy. And that was it, basically. That was it. I talked to, I guess, the manager, and we did a couple of rehearsals, and we were on tour. So, and that's worked out pretty well too. You know, I mean, that's a testament also to Ron's musical mind. He knew what they were looking for, and he knew what what I'm about, you know, as a player, so and a person. So that was a good call on his part, and thanks, Ron.
That's awesome, man, for sure.
And I know Ron because Spaz was touring with GNR, you know.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Another Jersey boy.
Absolutely, 100%. Actually, and one other thing to piggyback just off this segment, because I just think it's cool to keep everything in a little bundle. You have a pretty cool story from what I've heard about you playing with Helmet on like really short notice, having to learn their set. Since we're kind of on that, talk a little bit about that. You apparently only had like really a few hours to fill in this gig, to learn these songs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story, but the short story is Sebastian was touring with GNR as the opener, and the direct support was Queen's.
To the Stone Age?
No, it was that other band, that offshoot. It'll come to me. Anyway, so they didn't do well, and the audience didn't like them. And Eagles of Death Metal.
Oh yeah.
So they were off the tour, and Axel's guys suggested Helmet, and they came in, and on the first gig, Helmet were crossing the border, and their bassist couldn't get in the country. So this is before the first gig of Helmet joining the tour, and the show was that night. So they called ahead, and they told the GNR guys what's going on and that they wanted me to play. And when I got to the venue, everyone ran up to me and said, "You going to do this?" And I was like, "What?" You know. So when I realized that they were serious, I said, "Yeah," and I got a bunch of tunes from different people and started learning them. And like 4 hours later, it was set time. So, but you know, people do things because you got to get it done, you know. And I mean, it would have been a bad scene if Helmet couldn't do the show. Yeah. Because you know, one band just got booed off the tour, and you know, it would just been strange. So you know, it had to be done. So
absolutely, man, for sure. And I can imagine they were definitely very, very grateful. And you know, and props of course to you, man, for being down to just take that on and stuff like that, because that's definitely not a lot of time to prepare, man. So you know, go you, man. Horns up to you, Rob, for crushing that.
Yeah, I love Helmet. Unfortunately, or fortunately musically, but unfortunately for that day, their songs are all odd time signatures, so it was really difficult. But I actually played well. You know, I surprised myself. I really did. So.
Right on, man. Absolutely. Well, let's bring on the guy who surprises nobody, and Bobby Dreyer. I think it's time to hear from you, bro.
Happy Cinco.
Happy Cinco.
You know, you got to bring it. So you hung out with the Newcastle gentleman, you know, Mr. Vinnie Moore. And I've done stuff with Vinnie when I was with Hoshino in the years. How did you wind up, how did that all come about with you and Vinnie?
Are you in Delaware? Are you from Delaware?
No, I'm in Bucks County. I'm in Pennsylvania, but Ibanez Hoshino's right here. I've done a lot of things in the year. But Vinnie, I've been a big fan and a good friend of Vinnie's over the years. But so how did that relationship start about?
Very interesting, because I'm from Wilmington, Delaware originally.
Very cool.
Wow. I never met Vinnie, but even in high school, he was famous among, you know, little kids, high school kids, you know.
Pepsi commercial.
What's that?
The Pepsi commercial.
No. I'm talking before that. Before that, you know. So when he was a kid, he was famous, you know, like around just locally, you know, that kid who can, you know, do any Van Halen solo and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so this is before, you know, Mind's Eye. So, so I knew of him, but I never had the pleasure of meeting him. And so it's cool. You know, we have a Delaware connection. But I met him through, you know, British people,
really?
German people, because UFO's manager is German. But we get along great. He's very generous guy. You know, he hooked me up with Pick World in Wilmington, or in Newcastle, I mean.
Great guys.
Yeah, really nice. And he hooked me up with Diodario. Vinny's just a really generous friend. And it's a pleasure to play with him because he's an absolute monster.
So, Rob, here's another offshoot. How the heck did you get wind up being involved with Joan Jett?
That was just like a New York thing. Like, who's a bass player in New York who understands punk, you know? So it was just like who I knew locally. The bass tech recommended me. and he actually ended up, his name was Enzo. He ended up becoming the bass player in later years. I don't know what, he was a bass player all along. I don't know why he would recommend me. If I was a bass player and I was a bass tech, I would recommend myself. But he's a nice guy, and so he recommended me. That was just kind of like a fill-in. We went to Puerto Rico. We did U.S., some dates in the U.S. It was great, though. She's amazing. So.
An incredible artist, yeah. But that's great. I mean, what a catalog you have.
Well, yeah, you gotta be open to anything. And if you've been playing, rock and roll since you were a kid, you get, over time you get exposed to a bunch of stuff, meaning, opportunities, hopefully, I'm not really the kind of person who's afraid, so if someone, says, hey, you want to try this out? If I think it fits me musically, I'd love to do it, So it's, rock and roll is just, it's in my blood. It really is. So.
Which is great, but you've played with some amazing high caliber players. I mean, from UFO to going, from Vinny to...
Yeah, because that way when everyone's looking at them, I can suck and no one will notice. If I play with bad people, everyone will know I'm bad. So, I'm lucky. I'm very fortunate.
I got to ask, have you ever been intimidated by sitting there going, oh my God, I'm with Steve Morse. Oh my God, I'm with Vinny. Oh, I mean, these guys are... Look, like you said, Vinny was the shred head growing up. But then you look at Steve Morris, Dixie Dregs. Everybody, Joan doesn't bring slouches on. And that's a great, credible thing for yourself. For you to be with these individuals, don't count yourself out, dude.
Thank you. Well, I think when Sebastian joined the GNR tour in 2006, they had Robin Thicke on lead guitar from Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Richard Fortus on guitar, and Bumblefoot.
Wow.
It was just after Buckethead left. Yeah, Bumblefoot was the other guitar player. That is intimidating watching that level of talent, And with Axl, who sung incredibly live. That could be a little intimidating watching them saying, okay, this is the playing field, but it was awesome. Robin Thicke, it's like people who didn't see that, they think, oh, the guitar player in Nine Inch Nails, that would be strange, I mean, because considering most of the set is, songs from Appetite and Use Your Illusion and stuff, there was some new songs off Chinese Democracy, but most of it is that's classic stuff. That guy played with so much soul, Robin Thicke. Incredible guitar player. Like, I had no idea. It's just mind blowing. And then unfortunately he left after a little while of us touring with GNR. And then they got somebody else. I'm not sure who they got next.
Is that when they brought in DJ?
Probably. Yeah, it probably is.
Gotcha. Because they had him in the band for a little while. I actually forgot that Robin was in the band, in Guns N' Roses for a little while. I forgot about that until you said it. I was like, oh, that's right.
It was insane how the level of talent on that stage with those three guitar players. Because they really, they had a way of complementing each other, which is hard. Three guitar players is a lot, Yeah.
Absolutely, man. 100% for sure. Well, Father Perlswag, I think it's about time that we bring you in there, kind sir. Let's hear from you.
So, Mr. DeLuca.
Nice to see you.
You too. So, I'm curious as to the story. I'm sure you've said it before, but about the how the name Spread Eagle came to be. I hate to say it, but I bowl a lot of gutters, so that's where my mind is.
That's okay. Well, back then, that's probably where our minds were. Also, we were kids and let loose in the candy store. So, but the truth of the matter is, our manager at the time, Scott Calvert, rest in peace, he suggested we name the band that. Now, there was a song called Spread Eagle, and I'm not sure which came first. I think the song came first. And we could not think of a name, which doesn't sound like a big deal. Like, okay, well, you'll think of a name eventually. We got together. We wrote roughly 5 songs. We booked some gigs outside of the city. We were in Manhattan. We booked some gigs outside of the city. Just opening gigs where we could play a short set, 6 songs or something, throw in a cover, maybe 7 songs or something. We invited someone down to see us play in our basement rehearsal space, and we got an offer to get signed. So we started inviting other people, or they started hearing. There was like this feeding frenzy kind of thing going on. And in our little basement space that was like 12 by 12, people were coming down to see us. And so we got an offer from MCA, and we went with it, and we needed a name quickly. So that's why we chose that name. So, and the rest is infamy. Thus.
Absolutely. 100%.
And this is the original oil painting of the album cover.
That is really cool.
Tommy Gallo
Yes.
designed it. Our original drummer, Tommy Gallo, designed it, and someone else painted it. I know his initials are MP, and he was an Italian-American dude, but I can't remember his name. Michael, I think, something. But
Metal Summoners, do your research.
yeah.
Let us know. If you can find it, let us know so we can get that info to Rob. Speaking of the Metal Summoners, Angel, what do you think, man? Is it about that time for them?
Oh, yes, it is. I'm pretty sure we'll get the answer in a little bit.
That's a deep question. That's a deep dive question.
Yeah.
So we got a few fans with questions. First up, the lovely Matt Porter. He wants to know who has been the coolest and who has been the craziest to work with.
Craziest, I would probably say Sebastian. I don't think anyone can out crazy him. He's known for that, and he never fails to disappoint. And what was the first part of the question? The coolest?
Who has been? The coolest. You could give more than one answer.
A lot of cool people. Axl Rose was, we were blessed to do those shows with him, and he was incredibly generous and cool. A lot different how people portray him. And Phil Mogg is a gentleman and a legend. Ray West. There's a lot. I've been lucky to play with a lot of really cool people.
And Candy Burton wants to know your favorite songs to play live.
With UFO, it's probably Love to Love and Lights Out. I used to really like playing a song called Push to the Limit that we played for a little bit. Only You Can Rock Me. With Sebastian, The Threat, In a Darkened Room. With Spread Eagle, probably Broken City, Switchblade Serenade, and Through These Eyes.
Awesome. And just want to welcome Brianna Martin. And Brianna Martin, her question is, how did you stay inspired last year?
Well, I'm lucky. I'm kind of like a worker, like I just wake up and go to work on rock and roll. That's just what I've done since I was a kid. And, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And that's one of my strengths, is that I don't have any problem kind of pushing myself. So I just worked on tunes, a lot of new music, wrote a lot of songs, and demoed a bunch of songs. So luckily, I didn't struggle with it that much. But I know some people, were kind of caught in a hamster wheel, and I feel for them, because also I didn't have a lot of people around me that were gravely ill, from COVID. So I could keep my focus on positive thoughts. And I understand a lot of people weren't blessed with that situation. So, but I did okay. So, and thank God we're coming out of it now.
Amen.
And my question is, this is as a producer, what's the toughest thing about being a producer?
Well, I feel my job as a producer with Spread Eagle is to make sure it stays on that road that it's supposed to go, meaning the road where our fans want us to go. Because we're all very creative. All four people in the band, Ray West, Steve Shalev, Rick DeLuca, and I write songs, and we have, dozens of strong influences. So it'd be easy to write music that, all kinds of rock music, and some music that's not rock. So I think my main job is to keep it sounding like Spread Eagle. And so I'll say that's a general good rule of thumb for producers, know the band, know what they want, know what their fans want, and make sure they stay on that path, because it's very easy to get off that path. Because when you're creative, you feel ownership to these ideas and songs and parts, and it can be very emotional, and so it can be hard if there's something that isn't appropriate, so that's the producer's job. That's one of the producer's jobs.
Awesome. Back to you, Jay.
No problem, Angel. Thank you so much, man. Yeah. So Rob, a question kind of sticking on like Spread Eagle with with Stairway, the new album that came out for Spread Eagle. Mm-hmm. So for anybody who's not familiar as much with Spread Eagle now as opposed to Spread Eagle when that album and that painting came out, talk a little bit about, with the lineup that you have, like with like Rick coming in and playing in the band, like when you were looking to fill those slots, like did Rick, for example, just kind of seem like an obvious choice for that?
Yeah, it was time to be in a band with Rick. And we had another band of Earth. We have another band of Earth that we were playing in. And so it was time to definitely play with Rick, and it's been amazing. He's perfect for the band. He's so musical, and he's just such an incredible drummer, and and a dear friend to everyone. And he brought in Ziv Shalev. We had a couple really good great guitar players, who just weren't Spread Eagle guitar players, and one guy, we did a lot of gigs with him, and he was a total pro and, awesome player, but it was a little more like, it felt a little too modern rock kind of, for me, it just didn't feel quite like Spread Eagle, even though it was really good and even though he was great. So when Rick brought that, and then that guy quit, so we had to find someone, and Rick brought in Ziv, and Ziv is the perfect Spread Eagle sounding guitar player. Like, the thing is, when we were playing with other people, you can listen to our tunes and learn our tunes, and there's a lot of great guitar players out there who can, I can play that, and they can, and you're like, oh. But then when things progress, you realize that's not 100% them, With Rick, with Ziv, even though he plays all styles, as far as rock, he is the perfect spread eagle guitar player. It's just that blend of grit and finesse, and it's a very delicate dance. And naturally, he does it really well, and we're glad to have him.
That's awesome, man, for sure, Rob.
He's a real nice guy too.
Oh, that's definitely got to be something important. I mean, if you can't picture hanging out or being able to carry on a conversation with a guy on the road that's in your band, why is he even in the band? So,
especially when most of the day is not playing, it's driving, hanging out, eating your meals, doing merch. You're hanging with these people a lot, so you gotta like them.
Absolutely, for sure. And then like a follow up with like a spread eagle, because I'm always curious about different takes on this stuff when it comes to bands like yourselves that are really in that like late 80s and dominantly like early 90s time and stuff. Considering that you guys got signed so quickly when it came to forming Spread Eagle, finding a name and going on from them, as it's often referred to, with grunge and everything, and then the bubble popping and stuff like that. Like, what do you remember about that time when it came to like the record label and stuff like that?
A lot of what people say is true. It was like someone turned a switch, and then all of a sudden, if you had long hair or you had been associated with anything that was like 80s metal, you just weren't cool anymore. And that, in hindsight, everyone knows that's ridiculous. There's great music in any genre. For people who are into 80s, early 90s metal and hate grunge is wrong. There's great grunge bands. There was bad grunge bands, and vice versa for people who are into grunge who don't like what came before it. That's a little closed-minded, and so good music is good music and bad music is bad music. But to answer your question, yeah, it was overnight. All of us bands were just not cool anymore, and things started falling apart after that, and we had some internal problems, some drug problems, label wasn't doing the right thing. So, there's a lot going on with that. We were starting to grow up, and and see what the world's really about. And we didn't have any money. We didn't make any money, So, we were lucky if our rent got covered, and so, it was a tough time.
Absolutely.
But I guess it had to happen because you had all these bands, that looked dressed up absolutely ridiculously. And then you had all these bands dressing like Guns N' Roses who were wearing pink lipstick, the year before, So it was just a time where I think the toilet had to flush.
Sure. No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rob. We appreciate you, brother. Psycho Steve, man, let's bring you right back in, man.
All right, so we wanted to find out who did the artwork. It was a guy named Mark Picella.
I think that might be it, yeah. Good job, Steve.
Told you.
All right, artwork and art direction was Greg Hollywood Harrison.
I remember that name.
Okay, so there you have it.
But that other guy,
actual artwork with the cover illustration was Mark Picella.
Mark Picella.
Yes.
That's good. Good job, Mark.
Yeah, good job. Exactly.
Luckily, I ended up with it somehow. Thanks to Charlie Gambetta, our former manager. And I mentioned that Scott Calvert is the one who thought of the name, and he was one of our two managers. Scott is the guy that directed GNR Live at the Ritz. He directed that. So
yeah, Pimps Entertainment.
Rock Pimps.
So I was at that show, so I'm showing my age now too. Okay, and I also saw you at the Limelight, and I also saw you at the Birchill. That's the first time I saw you.
Wow, I forgot we played the Birchill. Wow.
Yeah. So, all right, so when Spread Eagle was on a little hiatus, Ray formed his own Spread Eagle with Chris Caffrey.
Yeah.
And he also played with Johnny Macalusa on drums. Um,
I was in that too.
and right. So you mentioned the guitars like Ziv, awesome guitarist, feeling it and everything like that. And like you said, you can play it, that's great. But if you don't feel it, it's different. And it shows on stage. Because, for example, Chris Caffrey, we've had him as a guest. I love him as a brother. He's an exceptional guitarist. But he doesn't have what Ziv has. Because I watched YouTube videos of you guys. I have the new album and everything, which you still need to sign, by the way. Hint, hint. That the je ne sais quoi, I guess the word is, that he has. That Chris has it, but he doesn't have it for your band.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, with all the bands that you've played with, because look, you've played with Moore, you played with Bonham, right? Because Bonham was in UFO for a little bit, because when you guys played the Starland and everything.
I wasn't in the band at that time.
Okay.
I came in just after that.
Okay. So
Andy had a broken foot at that time, and when his foot healed, he came back, and I came back shortly after that. I came in shortly after that.
Oh, okay. So the question is, if you were going to create your all-star band with everybody that you've played with, who would it be? Going from frontman to guitar, to lead, rhythm, drum, and there you go.
Oh, man. That's too hard to answer. I mean, because they're all great in their own way, you know? So I don't really have a favorite that would, no one's better than anyone else, you know what I mean? And on that level, you know?
Right.
And I don't really have or pick favorites, you know, because everyone's different. They're adding something unique to the genre. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's tough to answer.
Okay.
You know, like, I mean, I'm not, when I'm playing in UFO, I'm not up there thinking I wish someone else was standing next to me than the guy who is. That's for
Right.
sure. You know,
Nice.
it's awesome, you know. But they're all great. Box Band, Spread Eagle guys, UFO, they're all incredible players. They really are.
You can be
you can
you can
pick
fill
that
the
band for
position
me.
of hype man. That looks like that's about the best we could do for that one, dude. Is Psycho Steve, Rob DeLuca's hype man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you can pick the band for, you can make that band for me. You've seen us, you've seen all those bands, so
True.
going way back.
Yeah.
Right on, for sure. Well, Steve, let me keep it with you, Steve. Do you want to take it
Yeah.
into
So
another
the
direction?
next question is, now that, you know, as far as in, because you really didn't get a chance to tour with Spread Eagle to support the new album. I know you guys are writing another album.
Mhm.
However, if and when opportunity comes about, you guys are going to go out on the road
Absolutely.
to do support for two albums, or you're just going to take care of the first album and then come back and then finish recording it and then go back out on the road again?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure of the answer, but I could see us doing a bunch of recording and then maybe, you know, before we have a release date or something, going out and touring Subway to the Stars and then dropping an album and getting right back on the road. So that would be a nice scenario, even though I'm not positive it's going to happen that way, because you know the music business. Don't make any plans. But all I do know is we are going to tour a lot. We are going to release a killer next album because the songs are totally kick-ass. So things look pretty good from where I'm sitting. They really do.
Awesome.
And most importantly, I know that our fans will like this next record, and that is the most important thing to me, because you know, we weren't a huge band. You know, we had a rabid fan base that thought we should be, you know, much bigger than we were, and they stuck by us all these years. And now it's 31 years, 30 years, something like that, you know. So they're the reason, you know, we're doing it, and we're totally aiming our style towards what those people like, because it's also what we like.
Wow.
Oh man, for sure. Well, Bobby Dreyer, let's bring you in, my friend.
Okay, Rob, I'm going to hit you with a little bit of a hard one here.
Good.
So the rumor that came about Ray in the 90s and that, how did that all come about when, he left Spread Eagle and the whole AIDS thing came out?
I'm not sure because, to be honest, I didn't hear it till many years later. I really just started to go in different directions musically. I always played. I was always on the New York City scene. If I wasn't touring, I was always gigging. I was always writing. But I think, what
was it somebody trying to be vindictive, or I mean that's a pretty dark comment to put out about somebody and saying, hey, look, reason why Ray West left, oh, he's got AIDS.
Was that like a big story? Did like a lot of people think that?
Well, you know what it was? It was right around the same time when Pinnock did his article when he came out, and it was that whole bashing area of, pre-internet, before the internet blew up, and it was, people were just being snarky and really just evil.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I think I just kind of went to different scenes at that point and was playing like alternative music and heavy alternative and stuff. Because what we talked about of like the music scene styles changed so drastically that I wasn't really in touch with a lot of the Spread Eagle people. And I didn't hear that rumor till many years later, and I didn't know if it was a big rumor, but obviously it was very untrue. But Ray was doing, there was a lot of substances that he admits to, and maybe some people think that goes hand in hand,
Well, you think about it. It was right around the time when Robin Crosby passed away from AIDS. Eazy-E just died of AIDS.
Right.
Halford came out. It was, and people were just evil over anything. It was like, were they pissed off because the way the direction of the band went, or I don't know if they were trying to be vindictive, but I don't know how you dealt with something like that.
It'd be good to ask him that question because I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it at all. I would have called him and checked on him because Ray and I were traveling in different circles in Manhattan, and we would stay in touch occasionally. We weren't talking much, but we didn't have any problems with each other. And he was still singing, not as, he pulled back a little bit. He was bartending. I think he was trying to act. I think he did a little comedy. I think he was learning to chef, cooking chef. But I never heard about it, or I would have called him and just said, hey, you okay? I think when we got back together in like 2006 is when I started to hear things that had happened from when we broke up in 94 to like 2006. I was just really was out of the loop with those guys. I was on different musical scenes, playing in punk bands and stuff like that, and post-hardcore bands.
Cool. All right. Yeah. How this industry is. I mean, people, whether they're jealous or whatever, but people can be, hard as, people get, they beat the hell out of Halford and he rose above it, like a phoenix. So
and there's the lesson, like who's still here, who's still standing, like if you've been singing as long as Ray West, there's all kinds of people, urchins going to come out of the cracks to attack you or be jealous or try to, influence you with drugs or whatever, and it's just part of the game. And the way to win is just to be still standing and to make it through it and keep making music because, all the gossip and all the rock star bullshit, that's not why I'm here. That's not why Spread Eagle's here. We're here to make music, and we're still making music.
Damn good music.
And Ray did a killer job on Subway to the Stars. His voice is
Awesome.
really in great shape. So.
Well, good. I'm really glad you guys, because you got to rise above all the crap.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
100%, man. And we're definitely excited to be getting some spread eagle back in our lives for sure. So,
Yeah.
hey, Jason, let's bring you back in there, brother, to close out this segment before we kick it on to sponsors. So, Angel, hang tight, man. I got you.
No problem.
So, Rob, do you listen to any new music? If so, are there any new bands that you like, or maybe in particular appreciate maybe a new bass player that maybe you see yourself in, something like that?
I don't listen to too much new music. I mean, I like the new Killer Be Killed album. I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting in a lot of ways. Troy's singing and writing. I like the last few Baroness albums. I think they're a really, really good band, and they can be a big band. But I'm still looking for bands that have I'm still looking for a little more artistry. I'm looking for bands taking more chances, and a little more danger. So, and that's not saying it's not out there. It's just saying I haven't been exposed to it.
Right on. No, that's definitely super cool. I mean, I know, speaking of like new bands and stuff like that, and with you playing with Sebastian, I mean, I know that he's mentioned, liking a band that he's done some stuff with in the Black Veil Brides that's actually managed by Blasco, Ozzy Osbourne's bass player.
Yeah, they're cool. They're cool. And Jinx is married to Phil Mogg's niece.
Oh,
Phil
for real?
Mogg, UFO. I don't know if they're married, but I suspect they are. And he's come out to some shows, and he's a super nice guy. So I wish them all the best. I see that they're touring in Europe this summer. Good for them. And they got a new record coming out in the fall.
Yeah. No, for sure. So yeah, that's definitely super duper cool for sure. So as we get towards the top of the hour, we actually take a second just to thank a couple of our sponsors that, support us and allow us to continue doing what we do, Rob. So if you just want to hang tight for just a second,
Sure
man,
thing.
this is why we're able to have such cool people like yourselves on this show, is because of these peeps. So Angel, hang tight, buddy. You and the fans are next. So we always want to take a second to thank Bradley, BLE. We really appreciate everything that he's done and supported when it comes to the show. Absolutely. We thank Brad. We thank Angie. We thank Dawn every episode. Thank you so much, guys. Myself, Bobby, and Angel recently got to be able to check out one of his shows that he put on, and we really had a good time. Bobby and Angel got to do some camera work and some interviews and stuff like that, so that was definitely cool. And we know that Steve and Jason are excited to be able to get and rock out at those shows as well when we get like schedule permitting. So Brad, thank you guys so much. Anybody who's not familiar with BLE, they do have a show coming up with Kick and Valentina, who are TMS alumni of the show, on Sunday, May 23rd. KV are going to be doing a little area of shows, but there is a BLE show, free general admission, on May 23rd. So come on out and support some live music for sure. We always want to thank Saren Cadaver from Twisted Vines. We appreciate everything that she does with her husband and the horror decor that they always do. Fantastic, like voodoo dolls and Ouija boards and really just cool, creepy stuff. They do a fantastic job, supporting the show. And we really appreciate everything that they do. We want to thank Mark and Janet from Rock and Horror Apparel. We really appreciate you guys as well. Also, TMS alumni, they did a fantastic episode with us early on, and we really enjoyed talking with them and hearing about where they came from, what they've been up to, and where they are looking to go. So that's super duper fantastic, and we appreciate you guys as well. We always want to thank our buddy David Rosenfeld, Rosenfeld and Associates, njsmile.com. He keeps Steve with them pearly whites and all that stuff. So, David, thank you so much, brother. We really always appreciate you. And to wrap it all up, we want to thank John and Bubby's Beanery. We really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being involved with us, pimping us out, letting everybody know that if you're into rock, if you're into metal, if you're into that kind of cool stuff, to check out the show. So we definitely appreciate John being a word of mouth type of guy, along with some of our particularly loyal fans. So everybody sit tight, don't move. We got a quick commercial that we're going to run for you guys right quick, and then we will be right back with more from Rob DeLuca. Don't move.
What happened to you? Oh, I hope you feel better. Have a great day.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much, Metal Summoners, all the fans. Thank you guys so much for sitting tight so we can take care of that and express our gratitude to everybody. Anybody who wants to be involved with us, we're happy to have you. We've got different tiers, different levels of involvement. Just reach on out. We'll discuss it. We are all about helping build up the scene. So thank you guys all so much. Again, we are sitting with Mr. Rob DeLuca, UFO, Sebastian Bach, Spread Eagle. Thank you again so much, my friend. And Angel, thank you so much for being patient, brother. Metal Summoners as well. Thank you so much. It is right back to your guys' segment. Angel, take it away, bro.
Okay. Again, the question about the new album was answered. Was a question from Kim Marie. When will they be getting a new Spread Eagle album? So I believe that question.
That's a tough one to answer because we're still in the demo process right now, but we'll be recording it later this year, and then release date is always a question mark. So I'd say 22.
Cool. Yeah, we got a kick-ass question from Lonnie Hammer. And I'm curious, so I'm going to ask this all-around question so the fans can type in their answers. Lonnie Hammer wants to know, what is your favorite album you could listen to if you were locked in your room forever?
That would probably be, I'm going to pick two, okay? Aerosmith
Okay.
Rocks or
Nice.
Highway to Hell by AC/DC.
Those are really good answers.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are perfect albums. I saw Bomb when I was a little kid.
Oh,
With Ted Nugent on the Highway to Hell tour. It's amazing.
That had to be
At the
State of
Spectrum,
Shock tour. Yeah, the State of Shock tour.
I think it was. I'm not positive. But you could be right, but that was at the Spectrum in Philly.
Yep. Because Scream Dream was Def Leppard and the Scorpions.
It was pretty amazing. So
That's before Ted knew how to shut his mouth, but
I don't know. Ted always talked a lot, but
I was gonna be like, that was never a thing.
but it wasn't political back then. But he always talked a lot.
Look, I love when he came across in a loincloth. I mean,
And he
I
had,
don't want to see him do it now. But
narrows.
Absolutely, for sure. Angel, keep rocking with it, buddy.
Okay, but here's an inspiring quote from Ted Nugent. You're born at point A, you're going to die at point B. Kick maximum ass. Wonderful quote from Ted Nugent.
And he has.
Yes.
Love him or hate him.
Ah,
And he
I
makes
think
really good
a lot of
jerky.
ass. And he can play guitar, you know.
oh,
yeah.
I love
I just wish he was, you know, just stick to music, you know,
Double Live.
not mix politics with it.
Yeah, look, Double Live Gonzo still is that album you put on, you go, wow. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Okay, Candy Burton wants to know who inspires you.
What inspires me?
Could be
My
multiple
wife.
people.
My wife, the guys I play with always inspire me because I have to always be on my toes and be at my best. My dad, who's 86 and kicking ass, 86
Very
years
cool.
old, rocking away.
Yeah.
So, you know, I keep it kind of small around me. So basically, you know, my inner circle inspire me.
And here's a good question from, please forgive me for murdering your name. It says Weekany Graham. Again, my apologies for messing up your name. I guess this is back to our conversation about grunge. Did you see the music shift happening back in the 80s, and what are your thoughts?
Absolutely saw it shifting. The first Spread Eagle tour, we drove to, I believe, Vancouver or up in that Pacific Northwest area and started shows. So we drove from New York in our bus up to the Pacific Northwest and started our tour. And when we played in Seattle, we met Alice in Chains and became friends with them. And they came on our bus and played us a cassette of Facelift without vocals because the vocals weren't laid down yet. And to be honest, you know, it's hard to hear a style of something without the vocals, you know. I mean, it obviously kicked ass and it was great, you know. But just saying, like, you know, when putting a timeline on when we were, you know, hearing this stuff. And I saw Temple the Dog. I saw them at Foundations Forum in LA. It's like a heavy metal convention. I saw Alice in Chains play Foundations Forum, and then it was obvious to everyone. There was probably, you know, it wasn't huge because it was this convention. There was probably 500-600 people in the audience, and Lane was in a one-piece, you know, like flannel pajama, kind of like, you know, long johns that you wear, long underwear.
yeah.
And it was obvious to everyone in that audience. And this is on Facelift, you know, it was obvious to everyone in that audience, or maybe it was, I'm not sure what album it was on. It was either 90 or 91 we played there. But it was obvious what was going to happen. It was that mesmerizing and hypnotizing. Lane was just, and Lane didn't run around that much. But he was so commanding and it was hard to take your focus off him. He was so great and he sung so well. So it was obvious to us, you know, and
yeah, they jumped on the Van Halen tour right after that too.
Yeah, that's when I saw him.
Yeah.
So, and you know, then we were into Soundgarden long before they broke with
Bad Motorfinger.
No, just albums before that. Which
Jesus Christ Knows and
Loud Love.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Going back, we were totally into them, so we saw it coming. And the only thing is, we didn't expect it to be like, you know, this is the only music the world should listen to and forget everything else. We didn't see that coming, and you know, that's why we were like, yeah, these new bands out of Seattle are really interesting and cool, and you know, Mother Love Bone, and you know, all this stuff. So we just didn't see it that the, you know, public would turn on every other kind of hard rock. It was really strange. It was just one of the strangest things I've ever seen in the music industry. It definitely shouldn't have happened. The change should have happened, but the the concept that, all from today on, all music that has come before sucks. Like that whole concept, just we couldn't believe it was happening, but it was very strange. So yes, I saw it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look who's touring and rocking now. Sorry, I had to say that. My apologies.
Oh, no.
Sorry, Jason.
That whole genre is practically all gone now.
I know, right?
Unfortunately, most of the singers have died. It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
I'll go out and try to find some of them. Whatever living room they're selling out. Okay, David Rosenfeld, that's a good question. How was it working with the guys in Helmet?
Oh, I knew Page a little bit he lived in the East Village and I lived in the East Village, but I didn't know him very much. And I only worked with them for the Canadian GNR tour. They asked Baz if I could do because after Canada, then we went down to USA. And they asked Baz if I could do the entire tour, including the US states, and Baz didn't think it was good. So, I'm not that close with them. I was never really that close with them, but I have a lot of respect for Page, and the guys in this band were really cool. And I do love their music. I love their music. We were playing this one song. We were playing Pure is my favorite. It's called Pure. It's my favorite Helmet song. So that was really cool to run backstage, change my clothes, and come back up on stage again. So, and I did that in two bands. I also played with Metal Mike opening for Sebastian. When Metal Mike was doing his solo kind of Pain Museum without vocals thing. So it's pretty cool to play two sets, because by the second set you're really in the groove and totally relaxed, and so it kind of gets any jitters out of the way, with the first set, and then the second set you kick it more ass.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I love Helmet. I love that whole New York thing, that era. Helmet, Quicksand, Orange 9mm. I loved all those bands. So
all of them at the Birch Hill.
And that's where I went. That's where I went after Spread Eagle. I started to get into different genres, after the original run of Spread Eagle, I needed it to. I have nothing against anyone who was back in that era and is doing it still, or took a break and came back to it. But I felt like I needed to go to explore some different genres of heavy music to bring something back to Spread Eagle that wasn't stale, like I would hate to be trying to write like a glam rock. I'm nothing against glam rock, but I'd hate to be writing like a glam rock tune at 50, just trying to do it, or trying to remember how to do it, like I just write music from the soul. And because I've had these other influences, it puts a little bit of seasoning into the pot into the sauce of Spread Eagle, and that's how you keep a band great, in my opinion. You don't rehash. You stay true to the original spirit, but you keep it interesting, and you take chances, and that's what I want to see in the future of rock: bands that are taking chances.
Cool. And here's my question. With COVID putting a stop to so many tours, do you think, in your opinion, that now we can expect to see bands being on the road longer because of COVID happening and more people just wanting to get out and experience live music? Do you think we will see bands doing longer tours than before?
I think so, because, if you want to discuss touring, you have to take into consideration every aspect of it, and one of the aspects of it is definitely the economic aspect of it. And a lot of people are fucking broke, and they need to get out there and make some money to just pay for their rent and their mortgage and their kids or whatever, food on their tables. So I think a lot of bands will, for that one reason, first and foremost, want to tour longer, and then they're bored, they're home, they don't want to do a little tour and just come back and sit home again, I know I don't. So bring it on.
Yay!
Yay!
No, 100%.
We're ready to rock.
Absolutely. No, we are definitely ready to rock for sure. Actually, Rob, it's kind of interesting too, because when I was listening to you talking about like the grunge scene, and when you were talking about, Alice in Chains and listening to that songs before Lane had put down the vocals and all that kind of stuff, it was kind of crazy when you were talking about that, because it did kind of hit my brain where I was like, you know what? When you look at different genres and all that kind of stuff, you constantly get like, that talk of like the Mount Rushmore or the big four of this or the big four of that. And unfortunately, when it comes to grunge, the big four of grunge, actually none of those bands have their singers, unfortunately. I mean, just in my opinion, if I'm putting up the four top bands, it would have been Nirvana, it would have been Alice, it would have been Pilots, and it would have been Soundgarden. And it's just kind of crazy with that, because unfortunately, none of those bands have their original singers. I love the fact that three of them, well, two of them solidly, but three of them are still kind of out there. But it is just kind of crazy kind of thinking about those four like juggernauts that really kind of took over the music scene. And unfortunately, like so many other bands before them, had their own heartache that they had to deal with for that.
Horrible. It's horrible that the music world lost Chris Cornell and Lane Staley. And all of them. Kurt Cobain was great, and Scott Weiland was great. But for me, Chris and Lane, it's just like, just the music world. The fact that the music world lost them, it's unbearable, and their families on top of that. It's not good,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, just to expand on that a little bit,
for sure, man.
Pearl Jam, I think, is the only one that's left that.
Yeah, and someone could easily argue
that
they're in the top four.
Yeah.
If you look at Pearl Jam,
absolutely.
it's taste.
Pearl Jam kind of is like, I don't know, they came out around the grunge era, but they may look grunge, but I don't know, their sound is kind of slightly different.
They were all different.
They're
like Alice in Chains were, to me, like the metal grunge band, in my opinion, and someone else could see it completely different.
It's like they didn't know how to classify these bands, and they just threw them under one
umbrella.
And
so that's so strange that you call, it's all grunge, but they're all so different each other, But then again, then 80s metal was, not cool, but you have all these bands that are very different from each other. But like Soundgarden were like, the Sabbathy Beatles to me, or maybe even Zeppelin-y, grunge band, and Nirvana were punky, and so they were all very different from each other, and it's sad. You come down to it, we're all just trying to fulfill what we were put on this earth to do, and a lot of our purpose is playing rock and roll, that people are talking about. And it's a shame when you can't do that for a long, a full life of it, what would have happened,
Absolutely, for sure. So real quick, fans, I just want to let you guys know we're going to totally run the table with everybody, but it is last call for alcohol, guys. Get your final questions and your final comments into Angel, so we can definitely make sure that all of those questions get answered for you guys. So questions, it is last call for alcohol. The last thing that I kind of want to hit you with real quick, Rob, is I always just find nowadays, kind of looking back on where there's like, with, or like CDs, vinyls, digital downloads. So I've always found record labels to be very interesting. As of right now, when it comes to new Spread Eagle music, would that still be with Frontiers? And if so, how have you felt your relationship with Frontiers has been?
Frontiers are great people. The whole thing was via the web, because they're in Italy and I'm in New York City. So I never met them. And then months later, after our album was out, so it was quite a year later, I finally met one of the guys in Italy when I was playing with Bach at a festival. So I don't really know them that well, but I'd have to say that they were totally cool to me. They've been totally cool to me, and didn't have any problems with them. As far as our next album, it could come out anywhere. We'll see.
Oh, I got you.
I'm not sure yet. So I'm still figuring all that out. And when I have it a little more concrete, then I'll be able to answer questions like that.
Cool, man. No, absolutely and definitely understandable for sure, man. Psycho Steve, it's all you, bro.
And then he could come on our show again and promote that album.
I would love to.
Absolutely. Happy to.
All right. So the question is, since you're a New Yorker, all right.
Yes, sir.
The question
You
is,
are from the area.
yes, sir. Do you own a car?
I do not, but my wife does.
Right
I
on.
would
What kind of
never
car?
want a car in
Okay.
New York City. I would not wish that on anyone.
Right.
But having said that, because she has one, I use it occasionally, and there's times where I've said, "Oh, thank God I got this car," to move a 285 pound SVT heads or something like that, or 7 guitars to do a recording session.
Right.
Just that the music world,
That kind of stuff. It was kind of crazy when you're
is doing it still, or took a break and came back to it. But so the Canadian GM.
I hear you. So to piggyback off of that, when you hear your song, because right,
But
I don't know. They came out around the grunge era, but they may look grunge, but I don't know. Their sound is kind of slightly different.
they were all different.
They're
You know?
like
Alice in Chains were to me like the metal grunge band, in my opinion, and someone else could see it completely different.
it's like they didn't know how to classify these bands, and they just threw them under one
Yeah,
umbrella.
and so that's so strange that you call
Yeah.
it's all grunge, but they're all so different each other, But then again, then 80s metal was not cool, but you have all these bands that are very different from each other, But like Soundgarden were like the Sabbathy Beatles to me, or maybe even Zeppelin-y, grunge band, and Nirvana were punky, and so they were all very different from each other, and it's sad. It's sad, you come down to it, we're all just trying to fulfill what we were put on this earth to do, and a lot of our purpose is playing rock and roll, that people are talking about, and it's a shame when you can't do that for a full life of it. What would have happened?
absolutely for sure. So real quick, fans, I just want to let you guys know we're going to totally run the table with everybody, but it is last call for alcohol, guys. Get your final questions and your final comments into Angel, so we can definitely make sure that all of those questions get answered for you guys. So questions, it is last call for alcohol. The last thing that I kind of want to hit you with real quick, Rob, is I always just find nowadays, kind of looking back on where there's like, with or like CDs, vinyls, digital downloads. So I've always found record labels to be very interesting. As of right now, when it comes to new Spread Eagle music, would that still be with Frontiers? And if so, how have you felt your relationship with Frontiers has been?
Frontiers are great people. The whole thing was via the web, because they're in Italy and I'm in New York City. So I never met them. And then months later, after our album was out, so it was quite a year later, I finally met one of the guys in Italy when I was playing with Bach at a festival. So I don't really know them that well, but I'd have to say that they were totally cool to me. They've been totally cool to me, and didn't have any problems with them. As far as our next album, it could come out anywhere. We'll see.
Oh, I got you.
I'm not sure yet. So I'm still figuring all that out. And when I have it a little more concrete, then I'll be able to answer questions like that.
Cool, man. No, absolutely and definitely understandable for sure, man. Psycho Steve, it's all you, bro.
And then he could come on our show again and promote that album.
I would love to.
Absolutely. Happy to.
All right. So the question is, since you're a New Yorker, all right.
Yes, sir.
The question
You
is,
are from the area.
yes, sir. Do you own a car?
I do not, but my wife does.
Right
I
on.
would
What kind of
never
car?
want a car in
Okay.
New York City. I would not wish that on anyone.
Right.
But having said that, because she has one, I use it occasionally, and there's times where I've said, "Oh, thank God I got this car," to move a 285 pound, 285 pound SVT heads or something like that, or 7 guitars to do a recording session.
Right on.
But pre-COVID, let's talk pre-COVID. The subway is very efficient. It's very fast. It's easy, clean, and it's inexpensive. So you can get anywhere you want really quickly. And then you might have to do a 10, 15 block walk, when you get out, but that's no big deal.
Gotcha.
And I like walking. So, but, with COVID, going into the subway is a way a lot of people got COVID in New York City, even people who were very careful. So thank God I didn't have to do that. I haven't been in the subway for since COVID hit, and I got my second shot. I'm almost at 2 weeks since my second shot, so I'm days away from totally being ready to rock.
Nice.
But I do not own a car.
All right. So you said your wife owns a car. What's in the CD player if it does have a CD player?
We listen to a lot of 70s soul. A lot of 70s soul.
All right.
I listen to classical, a lot of classical. There's a classical station up around the dial by just after 104.3. It might be 105.1 or something.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of books on tape. So, I've heard all, the songs on the radio many, many times.
I hear you. So to piggyback off of that, when you hear your song, because SiriusXM plays your music, thanks to Eddie Trunk, and Dangerous Darren and the guys at Hair Nation, even though there's a cutoff where Hair Nation should stop and start. But the question is, when you hear your song on the radio, do you turn it up, turn it off, or turn it down?
I don't listen to my own music very, very rarely. I love it, but I don't look back much. That's just not my personality, So I don't let me crank my CD. I'm just not that type of guy.
Right.
So when it comes on the radio or in a club or something, I actually really enjoy it because I haven't heard it in a while. So I turn it on.
Awesome.
Right on, for sure, man.
An interesting story is, quick story is the way Spread Eagle got back together in 2006, and this is probably 2005 at the time. I was bartending in the East Village, and we had a customer who came in almost every night named Dave Harrington. Dave managed Green Street Studios where Spread Eagle recorded our debut album. And so we stayed in friends with him. And he was a customer of mine that came in often. And he snuck into the DJ, but he was constantly on me. God, you got to get Spread Eagle back together. And my mind just wasn't there because I was playing different styles of music and I wasn't ready. And so he snuck into the DJ booth and put on Broken City super, super, super loud. And it took me a little while. There's no vocals for quite a while in the intro. And it took me about a minute to realize who it was. And I was like, this is awesome, And when I did realize who it was, that was what made me call Ray and say, Ray, we should think about doing this. And that was probably 2005, and we started talking about it, and we put the band back together in 2006. So.
And I saw you.
Well, I turn it up.
Because the band that did support for you guys for a couple shows, because you did a show in very South Jersey. It's called the Dropouts. That's also where I saw you. So.
Cool. Well,
yeah.
Thumbs up to the Dropouts.
With Nikki Twisted.
Right.
Yeah, man.
I remember that name.
Yeah.
I remember that name.
That's awesome for sure. Nikki's popped on a couple of times for a couple of our episodes. He's around for sure. That's super duper awesome. Mr. Dreyer, sir.
So, two things. Gibson or Fender? Let's go for it. You know, because you're doing a Firebird, and then I see you rocking, you know, a lot of the Fender basses.
Beatles or Stones, you know, like, yeah.
You know, come on, you got to tell me.
Well, that's the thing, you know, when you're on that level, the Beatles or the Stones or Gibson or Fender, there isn't anyone that's better. It's just your taste. So, having said that, I play Fender in more situations than I play Gibson. Fender Precision to me, a good old Fender Precision to me is the best bass probably for metal, pop, reggae, punk, you name it. It's just for some reason the way Leo designed that bass, it just fits everything. So I play an old 66 Precision, and when I started with UFO, I brought it in, and it sounded great, as it always does. Into rehearsals in Wilmington, Delaware. We had Newcastle, Delaware. We had 2 rehearsals in Newcastle. I met the guys, and you know, over the next year, I'd talk to Phil, and we'd have conversations. He'd be like, "You know, those Thunderbirds really look good, and they really sound good." Little things like that.
Nikki made him kick ass. Nikki
so like
back out.
I got the hint, you know, without having to be, you know, told so directly. So I got me a '79 Thunderbird that I played.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, 4, 5, or 6?
I like 4. I like 4. Yeah, I like just traditional, you know.
So you mean if somebody would have came over and said one of these things, you know?
Oh my God, I wouldn't even know what to do with that.
Well, it's kind of like having an orgasm, you know. You know, you gotta get mad at, you know, Patitucci for doing this shit, but you know, it is an amazing bass.
I'm sure it's incredible. My mindset is more play less notes, play bigger notes, give a bigger foundation, play nastier, you know, all those kind of things that lead me kind of on the low end, you know, on the thicker strings on the low end most of the time, because going up here, you know, it's great and I do it, but there's nothing that moves a band like being down here. And when you're in bands without a rhythm guitar player, you really have to fill a lot of space, and you have to know where on the neck you should be playing. You should have a particular kind of tone that fills a particular kind of frequency range, has a lot of low, mid, growl. So, you know, that lends towards a 4-string for me.
So we're roughly the same age. We've had a lot of bass players on here, and probably one of my best friends, and who's probably the guy who kicked my ass across, Doug Pinnick.
Oh, he's awesome.
You know, I mean.
Yeah, and he's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like,
it's that bottom, not just,
and it's
that growl, and you know.
And he doesn't have to be like all up here noodling to be profound. Like you see King's X and you're like, oh my God, that bass.
Oh,
Awesome, you know? So I'm like from that school of like, I'd rather be deep and just rattle your whole body like that, you know?
same thing. Glenn Hughes. I mean, there's a lot of guys, I think the older we get and our genre and everything, even the metal guys keep going, look, the shred guys are great, but man, there's so many amazing bass players out there. Ellison, yourself, Mike Ennis from, we talked about, Alice. It was just, Mark from Pearl Jam. There's just so many incredible bass players out there now.
Yeah. And if you're laying down a really big, huge foundation, guys like Vinnie Moore or Steve Shalev, they can just fly because it's, there's so much solidity underneath them,
And the one guy we really have to give it up to is, Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith. You talked about rocks. I remember hearing, first time I heard rocks in 6th grade and going, what the fuck is that? Oh my God, you hear it,
Yeah. Yeah. I think on Back in the Saddle, that might be Joe Perry on bass actually. But Tom Hamilton's a monster. I actually read something recently where he was saying he felt like on Toys in the Attic, he felt before Toys in the Attic, so that would be on Dream On or whatever the first album is called, and Get Your Wings, that he wasn't that confident a bass player yet. And he said on the third album, Toys in the Attic, is when he started to kind of get his groove. And then obviously he wrote back Sweet Emotion, that's up there. And so, that's pretty interesting that he was making records with a legendary band and he didn't really feel confident yet until the third album.
So before we end, this is my last question to you. Iconic bass line, that one that just makes you go, has you have a face-gasm, where you just go,
I'm going to give props to a bass player that not many people talk about because he has dozens of iconic bass lines. There was a guy named Joe Lally who played in the band Fugazi.
Oh yeah,
which
big
was
Fugazi fan.
Yeah, a post-hardcore band out of DC. And that guy, his bass lines, all of them are legendary. Now, I mean, of course, don't get me wrong. I love the Sweet Emotions and all those too, and they're amazing, But listen to this guy, Joe Lally. Really, really, really great bass player.
Is there what made you pick that bass up? What was that made you just go, ooh, yeah?
That's not what made me do it. I was studying guitar at Berklee College of Music in Boston. I met Paul DiBartolo, who was guitar player in Red Eagle, and he needed a bass player. And I switched. He was a popular guy, Paul was. He was older than me, older than us, who were people in the band. I thought, well, I'm a guitar player, but this is a good gig, and there's obviously a party going on here, So, and I liked, there was a lot of, he wanted me, someone who sung a lot, and I liked singing. I still do. I love it.
Cool.
So I switched thinking, I'll do this and I'll continue studying guitar, etc. And start, band playing guitar. And I fell in love with it so much that I didn't expect this to happen at all, but I did not want to play guitar anymore. I was just enthralled with bass. So I sold my guitars and we were in Boston, we moved to New York City, and the deal happened to Spread Eagle pretty quickly. But I learned how to play bass, or it can be argued that I learned how to play bass in front of people on stage. Like I'd never played bass, and we had gigs, and Paul had gigs, and so I kind of fucked up in front of people, and made the mistakes in front of people. And that's one of the reasons maybe why I gravitated to foundational stuff, because I knew, well, that's what holds together, like that. It sounds better in a band setting, it's heavier. So
That's cool. Thanks, Rob. That's just cool. I'm a guitarist who loves playing bass.
it's fun.
And I got to ask, so do you stop thinking like a guitarist?
I mean, eventually I did, many years ago, yeah. But that's a good point. It's a completely different animal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, if you're not good, play bass because it's simpler. To be great, you have to be great. Like Jaco Pastorius didn't pick up bass because it was simpler.
No.
McCartney, Entwistle, Duff McKagan, who's a mind blowing.
I love Duff. Yeah.
He's so good. But anyway, to be great is to be great, and I'm certainly not saying I am, but we all aspire to that. So it's not easier. It might be easier just to start on or something like that. But so yes, they're very different animals, and I started thinking like a bass player probably after a year or so. It took a little while.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Real quick, before I kick it up to Jason, I just have to bring this up because it just kind of made me think. I want to pull up the song Switchblade Serenade with you right quick, Rob, because the intro to that song is so bass forward and it's such a bass riddled song. Can you just talk a little bit about the writing of that song? Did you come up with the riffs for that, the intro? Like, what was your part in that?
I did not. I wrote, I came up with the title and a bunch of the lyrics, chorus, a bunch of the verses. So Paul actually wrote the music to that song, Paul DiBartolo, and pedaling that E string just was the way to go, I'm sure I tried more involved things, and again, it needed some kind of foundation, just glue to hold it all together. And that E, playing that E string, certainly did it. And it's fun, and then I start riffing out with the guitars quite a bit, so it's a fun song. It really is. I love singing that song too.
For sure.
Those high harmonies are nice.
So good. No, for sure. That song is so badass. Yeah, when we were talking about like riffs and just bass, I was just started thinking, I was like, Switchblade Serenade is like, it's so bass heavy just to open up that song. So that's super duper cool, man, for sure. Jason, take it away, brother, man.
So Rob, we know you play bass and guitar. Are there any other instruments? What's up?
No, I'm just joking.
Are there any other instruments that you play or want to learn? It's never too late to learn.
I used to. When I went to Berkeley, I studied piano for a year, not as my main instrument, as my secondary instrument to guitar. And I actually got good at it in 1 year. I was impressed. I impressed myself. I was actually better. I was learning that faster than I had learned guitar. But unfortunately, I have not stuck with it. And that's my own fault. And I played a little flute when I was a kid. After I started playing guitar, I think I would like to get back to playing piano and maybe cello.
So cello too. Okay. So
I used to play like mandolins and all different stringed instruments when I was a kid growing up playing guitar.
So out of all those instruments that you have played in the past, which one? I know you play bass all the time, but which one do you get urges to play? Like, oh man, I wish I had a piano. You were just saying that you want to get back into piano. Which one gives you that release of your urge to play?
Definitely bass, because I write on bass, and most people write on guitar or piano or instruments with more strings or more notes, but I've always written on bass, and so it makes me bass is where I get creative. So it's rhythm and harmony together, and So it's definitely bass.
Very cool. Very cool.
Right up. Angel Alamo, it's all you, brother. Bring us home.
Yes, 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 yes. Two more fan questions. Ginny wants to know, will you be touring with Sebastian Bach this year?
I hope so. I saw that he has a show this summer on his website, and we had the 30th anniversary of the debut, which was postponed and ran into the 31st year. That was supposed to happen in the spring and summer, so hopefully we'll still do those dates. So hopefully.
Candy Burton, the last fan question of the evening. Do you have any goals post-pandemic?
Goals is definitely my main goal is to get this next Spread Eagle record together and get it out. And I mean, I feel the band is getting better and better. Songs are getting better and better, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I really believe in it, obviously.
And now my question, when you're on the road, how many basses do you take with you?
I only take two. I feel any more than that is just you're in jeopardy of damaging one or having one stolen or something like that. And I just use one general tuning where I'll have a general tuning or drop D, So I used to bring like a really nice backup bass. I hardly ever use my backup bass. And I just do quick tuning on stage, between songs. And I used to bring a really nice backup bass. And then I started saying to myself, well, what if it gets stolen? So now I just bring a good backup bass, but not like one of my best ones, So just two.
Cool.
Two heads, two basses, wireless, one cabinet.
Nice. Do you have guitars with names?
I do not. I've never named a guitar.
That's awesome. No, I've always just found that to be like a fun question to throw out there. But Rob, man, we really got to say thank you, man. This has been super duper fun. Our big thing is always that you enjoyed yourself, man, that you had a good time, you felt your time was respected, and you liked your questions.
I did. Thank you.
Awesome.
I want to say hi to Kimmery Erickson, who hooked me up, Will Powers and Brianna Ray. And I want to ask everyone to go to Spread Eagle's YouTube page and our Spotify page and like those and subscribe. And check out vintagebassworld.com. That's my vintage bass website. Really cool site.
Very cool.
Enthusiasts.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. Any place that people want to find you, like where can they go? Like, because you seem to have some typical socials like Instagram, Facebook.
Easy to find, yeah. To be honest, I'm not on Instagram much. I do have an account, but I'd say Facebook is the easiest place to find me. But just Google Spread Eagle or Rob DeLuca, and you're gonna find something very quickly.
Awesome, man. Well, right on. Well, Rob, thank you so much, man. You're an alumnus now, and we can't wait to get you back on the show when there's new Spread Eagle music. But fans, make sure you get out there and support Rob out on the road there for upcoming Spread Eagle shows, UFO shows, Sebastian Bach shows. So thanks again, Rob. We really, really appreciate you, man.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Steve, for having me.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, everyone. Thank you so much. Great questions. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Well, Metal Summoners, thank you guys so much. You know how much we love you, and you keep us fueled up and ready to go. So we keep bringing you guys more episodes. We got our next guest announcement is on Friday. So look forward to that, everybody. Again, same place, you know where to find us. Wednesday nights, this is the place to be. So when Friday, guest announcement next Wednesday, next show. For again, everybody on the Metal Summit, for Jason Perlzweig, for Psycho Steve, for Angel Alamo, for Bobby Dreyer, I'm Jay. And again, a very special thank you again to Mr. Rob DeLuca for spending his evening with us. And we really appreciate all of you guys, as always, tuning in with us. Check out all of our socials. Hit up our Facebook page. Make sure you're liking and following that, since that's where we go live. Smash on that subscription button for YouTube. We definitely want to drive that up, and definitely hit us up on Twitter and Instagram as well. Fans, summoners, thank you guys so much. We're going to call it a night. We will see you guys next week. And as always, you have been watching the Metal Summit.
The Metal Summit. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rob.